Today's video we're going to be welcoming a new machine to the workshop. So you can probably tell behind me workshop is absolutely upside down, a lot messier than it is normally. But I've managed to finally get my dream lathe. I've fancied one of these for years. This is a VB36 all wrapped up. It was an absolute nightmare trying to get it into the workshop, or we'll call it an adventure. It turns out pallet trucks aren't designed to go over gravel or grass, so it was a heavy beast to move. But we're just going to unwrap this now and hopefully get them secured onto the workshop floor. What I'm going to have to do is look at the suitability of the concrete floor. This is a job I've been meaning to do for a long while. When I first moved into the workshop, the floor was absolutely cracked and everything. So I think what we're going to do, just to make sure this has got a stable base to sit on, is we're going to dig out an area, put some reinforced concrete bars in, and concrete a square patch where this can sit on, and we can put some through bolts into. I think that's going to be the most secure way. At the moment, you can probably see the floor's pretty much crumbling as I walk on it. So it's a big job for the summer to do the entire floor. But for now, I think we're just going to dig out a little patch just to make this safe to turn on. First thing we're going to do is just take off the top layer. So it's this horrible, almost like plaster. So it's skim coat of concrete, I think, that hasn't set properly over the top of that. We're going to get rid of that first of all. So I've dug out the top, then what I've done is I've created a little frame, the same footprint of the machine. So I've measured from the ledge of the door, so equal distance, and I've made sure my frame's square because I've measured corner to corner. I'm going to be using some spray paint to spray along the edge of the frame, and that will then allow me to know where I'm going to need to start digging out. So that's our footprint. What we're going to do is go 1 foot around the entire footprint itself. I'm doing hard work by hand, so I've had to bring in the reinforcements. I've got an SDS drill and hammer, and it's going to be using the chisel then to just chisel up the outside of this and start undercutting it. This is going to make it a little bit easier. So here's the progress so far. What I've done is I've cut a channel around the outside of that line with the SDS chisel drill, and I've just been drilling down to my depth and undercutting then with the pickaxe. What I'm going to try and do then is dig out this entire area. Now it's absolutely shocking, the floor, so it's only about 1 inch, 2 inches of concrete in some area, then just rubble underneath, so sand and rubble, which does mean I'm going to have to replace the whole lot in the summer. Almost there, just got the last section to shovel out and wheelbarrow away. Then we'll be ready to start putting down our stuff to lay the concrete. So I've got them finally all dug up, and I've dug down to a depth of 9 inches. And this should give us plenty of room then to put in a good base of concrete with some steel reinforcements. In order to backfill some of the sand, what we've done is we've got a load of old bricks, and we're making some hardcore to go down. So we're breaking up the bricks into smaller bits, and we want to do that. If you've got large bricks, you're going to get more air pockets forming underneath the concrete. And I found the easiest way to break bricks up. You can use a brick and hammer, or you can get yourself quite a cheap axe like this, and the flat end of the axe is ideal for breaking them up into smaller bits. You can also use this part of the axe as well for splitting down the long section of the brick. So it's really easy. Rather than forking out on an expensive brick and hammer, that's an alternative. So we're going to crush all these now into smaller bits, compact them down with a tamper plate, then we're going to start adding more things over the top. I would advise wearing safety goggles and probably a dust mask as well, as the brick dust can get in your eyes and into your lungs. So we crushed up all the bricks, and we're just tamping it down to make it really compact and hopefully break up the bricks a little bit more. If we see any big bits like that, we're going to break them up. Right, we crushed up all the bricks and rubble and made a nice hardcore base, and I've just put a sheet of damp course membrane over the top. So essentially a sheet of plastic that stops the rising damp. And what we're going to do next is I've welded up a little rebar frame. We're going to put that in there slightly raised and pour in the cement mix. So a friend of mine's been very kind and lent me his cement mixer, and we're going to be using a 4:1 ratio of ballast to cement to make our concrete. So that's going to be the next challenge. So we've got the rebar now put into place, and that's holding the damp course membrane down. We've got a few rocks, as you can probably see, underneath, just to give it a couple of inches from the membrane itself. Then we're going to backfill all this with our concrete mix. What we're going to make sure is that we're working the concrete towards the corners and slightly towards those undercuts as well. After then, you notice we've left an overhang. It's always better to do that because you can trim it nice and neatly after you've done your piece. So progress so far, just layering up. Got the cement mixer on the go still, and we're just going to pour it until we get level then with the rest of the floor, and we're going to screen over the top of that then to make it all level. So getting there very slowly. So we're going to call it a night for tonight. So we've got it all filled in, as you can see, all level with the sides, and we've gone over and done a little bit of patching on some areas that weren't so good. What we're going to do tomorrow is we're going to skim over the top with, rather than using a ballast mixture, we're going to use some sharp sand, and that should help us get a nice smooth finish over the top there, and it should be nice and sturdy for the lathe. So it's the next day, and what we've done is the concrete set an absolute treat underneath. What we've done is make a box frame, and the box frame itself is 2 inches larger around the perimeter than the footprint of the lathe, so that should give us plenty of room then to drill some through bolts into the base and have a nice sturdy base for the VB to sit on. The concrete is setting nicely. So the idea behind this frame then is that we had 2 battens, we put a large spirit level across it and across the other way to make sure it's perfectly level, because the rest of the floor in here isn't quite level, but this central part is perfectly level with a large spirit level, the bubble's right in the middle and on the diagonal as well. So we filled that in. So what the idea today is we're going to be taking the form off. Right, let's remove this. And kneading up the edge, so blending in with a sand and cement mixture to blend in these sides. So the idea behind this then is I'm making a slight slope down from the central part so it all blends in with the rest of the floor as well. So the shavings then should come off and slide under rather than getting caught in this little gap here. So it should make them a little bit easier to sweep up in the end. So I'm just doing an angle screen oil and sort of feathering out the edges, I think that's what it's called, into the rest of the floor so it all blends in nicely. Blended in all the sides now around the square plinth, so tiny bit of a slope down then so all the shavings can fall back, make them easier to sweep up. So I've waited 28 days patiently and I've let the concrete set to an industrial strength, and my best friend and me moved the lathe on top, which was a bit of fun. And what we're going to do next is drill some through bolts into the bottom. Now in an ideal situation and have a winch and winch the lathe up and drop them onto the bolts, but unfortunately I haven't got that facility, so we're just going to be drilling slightly smaller holes. So we're going to be using an SDS drill, and what I've done on the drill bit itself is the depth of the hole we need to cut for the through bolts is 65mm. I've used a permanent marker pen to mark that depth on, so I'm going to drill down to that depth, come up, hammer the through bolts in, and that should help secure this lathe really tightly to the floor. What I've also done is I've put a sheet of lead underneath, so that should help it dampen and tighten the lathe down really securely to the floor. So I'm going to drill the holes now. I'm going to make sure I've got my eye protection, some goggles and some ear defenders, and I'm going to be using the SDS drill. So I put a 12mm drill bit in, so I put it over the hole and drill down. So I'm going to put a 12mm drill bit in, so I put it over the hole and drill down. So I'm going to put a 12mm drill bit in, so I put it over the hole and drill down. So I'm going to put a 12mm drill bit in, so I put it over the hole and drill down. So I'm going to put a 12mm drill bit in, so I put it over the hole and drill down. So I'm going to put a 12mm drill bit in, so I put it over the hole and drill down. So I'm going to put a 12mm drill bit in, so I put it over the hole and drill down. So I'm going to put a 12mm drill bit in, so I put it over the hole and drill down. So I'm going to put a 12mm drill bit in, so I put it over the hole and drill down. So I'm going to put a 12mm drill bit in, so I put it over the hole and drill down. So I'm going to put a 12mm drill bit in, so I put it over the hole and drill down. So I'm going to put a 12mm drill bit in, so I put it over the hole and drill down. So I'm going to put a 12mm drill bit in, so I put it over the hole and drill do I've drilled to my Sharpie mark. What I'm going to need to do now is reduce the amount of dust, so I'm going to use my cam vac to suck all the dust up. Making sure there's no dust in the hole. I'm going to bring the thread of this right up to the top so I can hammer this in. So the way these bolts have been designed, as they're hammered in, they flare out, so they have a good anchor grip in the ground, and will stop this from moving around. So put them on, hammer them down. And I'm just going to do these pinch tight just for now. We're going to come around later on with a spanner and tighten them up really tight. So finally got the lathe all installed, and I'd be really happy with the results. Now, I'm by no means a builder, and this has been my first building project. So if you're a builder watching this video and you've got any tips and tricks you can share with me for laying concrete for the rest of the garage, I'd really appreciate those in the comments, because that would help me out. Now, I've been wanting to turn on a VB36 for many a year, ever since I've watched Tobias Kane's wood turning instructional videos. And in the future, this is going to be used in lots and lots of wood turning projects. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned to the channel. If you've enjoyed tonight's video, please consider subscribing, and I can get some more wood turning or woodworking videos your way. So hope you have a great night. Thanks for watching. Diolch yn fawr. Nos da.